This lady is an op. This lady is an op. There's no way around it. In one breath, Stephanie White wants to finally come to grips in terms that the Indiana Fever is Caitlin Clark's team. Now, we all know she was forced and pressured into saying that. She had said multiple times, Kelsey Mitchell's the main priority here, yada, yada, yada. And we have in this article where Stephanie White blasts Caitlin Clark fans again, calling them toxic as if us.
The arena lights hadn't even cooled after the final buzzer when the whispers started. Sharp, frantic, electric. Word spread like wildfire. Coach Valerie Storm had finally snapped. Not at her players. Not at the league. But at the one group nobody expected her to take aim at, the fans. Specifically, the massive, unstoppable, fiercely loyal wave of supporters behind Caitlin Clark. It began as a leaked audio clip, 39 seconds that detonated across social media like an explosion. In it, Valerie's voice sounded tight, heated, on the verge of breaking as she unleashed a tirade about toxic fan bases, blind worship, and people too obsessed with hype to see the truth right in front of them. Within minutes, millions heard it. Within hours, the league was in chaos. By nightfall, analysts were tearing into every syllable. Players were subtweeting cryptic reactions, and reporters were swarming practice facilities like hornets. But the real shock wasn't what she said. It was why she said it. Because insiders claimed this wasn't a slip. This wasn't stress. This wasn't frustration boiling over. This was personal, deep, emotional, a grudge years in the making. One that had finally erupted into a public scandal capable of ripping apart locker rooms, reshaping alliances, and dragging the entire league into a storm no one was prepared to face. And as her voice echoed across the internet, one terrifying question rose above the noise. If this is what she said in public, what was she hiding in private? Long before Coach Valerie Storm's voice exploded across the internet, long before fans dissected her every syllable like a national emergency, there was a story buried under years of pressure, resentment, and unspoken fear. A story no one saw coming. Not the analysts, not the league executives, not even the players who trusted her. And certainly not Caitlin Clark, whose meteoric rise had become the brightest, loudest phenomenon in the modern basketball world. Because Valerie hadn't always been this way. Once, she was the calm presence on the sideline, the strategist, the mentor, the coach who believed the league could only grow if everyone pulled together. But the league changed faster than she expected. The game changed faster than she was prepared for. And the fans changed most of all. Everything began the night Caitlin Clark declared for the draft. Valerie remembered the moment vividly. The roar of applause, the camera flashes, the headlines exploding across every sports network. And she wasn't angry, not yet. In fact, she admired the rookie. She respected her shooting, her movement, her vision. She respected how she carried herself through pressure most players never felt in their entire careers. What rattled Valerie wasn't Caitlin. It was what followed. Suddenly, every conversation inside the league began with Caitlin Clark. Every broadcast centered on her. Every ratings chart spiked whenever she touched a basketball. Entire arenas filled with signs, shirts, chants, an ocean of new and passionate fans who had crashed into the league with unstoppable force. And while the growth thrilled executives, it quietly destabilized the old hierarchy. Some veterans embraced it. Some worried. Some, like Angel Reese, whose rivalry with Caitlin became a national spectacle, thrived under the spotlight. But others felt their accomplishments fading behind a single storyline. Valerie watched the shift unfold like tectonic plates grinding beneath her feet. For years, she had fought for balanced coverage, for equal recognition of her entire roster. But now reporters flooded practices asking only about Caitlin, her highlights, her minutes, her development, her influence, her every breath. And Valerie, who prided herself on protecting her players from outside distraction, found herself battling a tidal wave she couldn't control. But the real fracture began with a single game. Her team had pulled off a gritty, hard-earned victory, one of their best performances of the season. Yet the post-game press conference wasn't about their win. It wasn't about her star forward. It wasn't even about her team. It was about a clip circulating online of Caitlin hitting a deep three during her own matchup earlier in the night. Valerie felt a crack inside her chest then. Not anger, but a creeping sense of invisibility. A fear that no matter how well she coached, no matter how hard her roster worked, They were becoming background characters in a league suddenly reorganizing itself around someone else. She knew Caitlyn wasn't to blame. Caitlyn never asked for the chaos surrounding her. She carried the attention with grace, never mocking opponents, never inflaming rivalries, never weaponizing her fame. But Valerie's panic didn't come from jealousy. It came from survival. Because behind doors fans never saw, Valerie fought daily battles with executives who pushed for marketable players, bigger narratives, and stars who move numbers. She heard whispers that teams would soon be evaluated not only on performance, but on cultural impact. Impact meant attention. Attention meant relevance. Relevance meant job security. And Valerie had built her entire career on fundamentals, discipline, and team-oriented basketball, not social media storms and viral highlights. So when fans online, the loudest, most passionate segment, began claiming that anyone who didn't praise Caitlyn endlessly was anti-growth or a hater, Valerie's anxiety spiked. She saw comments attacking players who missed defensive rotations against Caitlyn. She saw threads blaming coaches for not respecting her star power. She saw suggestions that some teams were trying to dim her shine. She felt the ground shifting under her feet. Her own players felt it too. Valerie overheard late-night conversations about endorsements, exposure, and how hard it is to compete with someone the world already loves. Not resentment, fear. The fear of becoming invisible. Even rookies like Paige Buchers, whose talent was undeniable, admitted privately that stepping into a league dominated by one narrative was overwhelming. Others whispered that they'd never seen the fanbase this intense, this territorial, this ready to clash. And Valerie's protective instinct, her fiercest trait, kicked in. She didn't want her players swallowed by forces bigger than basketball. She didn't want them to feel they were competing with a brand instead of another team. She didn't want their achievements erased by algorithms and fan wars. But instead of speaking publicly, Valerie buried everything deep inside her. She smiled through interviews. She praised Caitlyn's success. She defended her own players from online chaos. She told everyone she wasn't rattled. But every week, the noise grew louder. Every month, the league shifted more. Every headline hurt a little more than the last. Until the night her team suffered a heartbreaking loss. One she blamed on herself more than anyone. And she walked into the locker room to find half her roster scrolling through comments comparing them unfavorably to Caitlyn. Valerie felt something inside her snap. Something years in the making. Something she'd tried to suppress. Something she never wanted anyone to hear. And that was the moment. The moment she didn't realize a staffer was recording. The moment her private frustration finally erupted. A moment that would become the audio heard around the world. A moment that would lead to the scandal she could never take back. A moment that would ignite a firestorm powerful enough to shake the entire league. And it was only the beginning. The real explosion didn't begin with what fans saw on camera. It started behind closed doors, in a WNBA media room packed with tension, so thick it could suffocate the air itself. Caitlyn Clark had just wrapped up another breakout performance, and reporters swarmed her like she was the league's beating heart. Yet in the back corner of the room, Lexi Brown watched with clenched fists and burning eyes, feeling the attention slip further and further away from the veterans, from the OGs, from the players who believed they had built the league long before Caitlyn ever arrived. She didn't hide her frustration. She didn't even try. And that was the moment the storm began. Lexi muttered something under her breath, a bitter jab about fake hype and bandwagon fans. But cameras were rolling, microphones were live, and social media was waiting like a shark smelling blood. Within minutes, her comments went viral. They weren't subtle. They weren't professional. They were personal, direct, cutting straight at Caitlyn Clark and the fanbase that adored her. The fanbase that had saved entire franchises from empty seats. By morning, the clip had spread across every platform, igniting a wildfire the WNBA wasn't ready for. Fans demanded answers. Teams panicked about PR fallout, and league executives scrambled to silence the flames before they burned the entire season down. But the league wasn't even prepared for the next hit, because Cheryl Swoops, a legend, a face carved into WNBA history, stepped into the chaos with her own gasoline. She doubled down. On a podcast, she laughed at Caitlyn Clark's supporters, accusing them of being delusional, toxic, and blind to the real talent. She dismissed Clark's accomplishments as media-created fantasy. She claimed the attention around Caitlyn was rewriting history in real time, and not in a way she approved of. The internet exploded again, this time with a ferocity that felt unstoppable. Cheryl Swoops wasn't just any critic. She was royalty, a pioneer, a Hall of Famer. And seeing her openly target the rookie who revitalized ratings, ticket sales, jersey sales, and global visibility, it was a blow that ripped through fan bases, locker rooms, franchises, and even corporate sponsors. Sponsors started calling the league. Not to negotiate, not to strategize, to threaten. Fix this or we walk. Those words hit the commissioner's office like a bomb. And behind the scenes, everyone knew who they were talking about. The two loudest voices attacking the league's new golden star. Lexi Brown, Cheryl Swoops. Two names suddenly glowing red on every internal crisis report. But the conflict didn't stop at PR meetings or social media battles. It sank deeper, into practice gyms, team meetings, and locker rooms already divided by jealousy, pressure, and resentments that had been simmering for months. Players whispered that Lexi's comments weren't coming from nowhere. She'd been frustrated long before Clark arrived. Players from other teams admitted off the record that Swoops had been warning them that the league was changing too fast. That rookies shouldn't take the spotlight from veterans. That the WNBA didn't need a new face. But once Caitlin Clark became that face, their resentment intensified. Silence turned into rumors, rumors into hostility, hostility into a full-blown power struggle that threatened the league's stability. The tipping point came during a private WNBA marketing summit, a closed-door meeting where executives, team reps, and selected players discussed the future branding of the league. Caitlin Clark was a major focus of the agenda, and everyone knew it. Lexi Brown walked into that room ready for war. Witnesses later leaked that she slammed her notebook on the table, interrupting the presentation, calling the league's focus on Clark obsessive, weak, and dangerously unbalanced. She accused executives of ignoring the veterans who had sacrificed for decades while getting crumbs. Her voice shook, not from fear, from anger, from resentment that had built up like pressure in a cracked pipe. Executives pushed back gently at first, until Lexi crossed the line and mocked the fan base that brought millions of dollars into the league. She said they were fake, temporary, and too emotionally obsessed with one blonde shooter. The room fell silent, and then everything changed. At the same exact moment Lexi Brown was erupting in that meeting, league officials received a message, an urgent red flag email from a major sponsor. It contained a screenshot of Cheryl Swoops' latest comments on air. A sharp accusation that Caitlin's fans were ruining the purity of women's basketball and corrupting the culture. The sponsor threatened to pull out immediately if the league didn't take action. Within 2 hours, the crisis team drafted a response for the commissioner. Not a warning, not a meeting, a termination proposal. The league knew it couldn't risk alienating the biggest audience Surge It had ever experienced. And whether anyone in that room wanted to say it out loud or not, everyone knew the truth. The league now revolved around Caitlin Clark's influence, her marketability, her economic impact. Lexi Brown had fired the first shot. Cheryl Swoops had fired the second. And now the league was aiming right back at both of them. But the real twist came when the WNBA Players Association found out about the termination proposal. They stormed into the commissioner's HQ demanding explanations, claiming the league was choosing favoritism over fairness, money over loyalty, and a rookie over veterans who had built the foundation. The tension was volcanic. Executives shouting, lawyers threatening lawsuits, players arguing in hallways, social media melting in real time. And in the center of the storm, Caitlin Clark. She had no idea any of this was happening, until one of her teammates pulled her aside, eyes wide, phone in hand, showing her a leaked screenshot of the league's internal discussions. Caitlin froze. Her stomach dropped. Her world flipped. Because the leak revealed more than firing plans. It revealed names, comments, private criticisms, players she thought respected her, legends she grew up admiring, voices she didn't know were plotting, venting, or attacking her in private. Her hands trembled as she read words she never imagined seeing. The league was breaking apart around her. And then the commissioner made the decision that would shake the entire WNBA to its core. A decision that would shock every player, every coach, every fan. A decision that would lead directly to Lexi Brown and Cheryl Swoops losing everything. But that decision wasn't the final twist. It was only the beginning. Because the moment the WNBA tried to execute the punishment, something happened that nobody in the league could have predicted. And this would turn the entire scandal upside down. The tension inside the WNBA's league offices didn't just rise, it exploded. Phone screens lit up like wildfire as executives forwarded each other screenshots, messages, and recorded calls, each one more alarming than the last. What started as a league review had turned into a full-blown crisis, and the pressure was now suffocating the people who'd once felt untouchable. Behind closed doors, tempers snapped. Voices rose. And the battle lines inside the WNBA hardened into something personal, bitter, and irreversible. Kathy Engelbert stared at the crisis board, heart racing, as staffers updated numbers showing overwhelmingly angry fan sentiment. The data was brutal, millions of comments demanding accountability, calling the league biased, and questioning whether the WNBA had lost control of its own narrative. Every hour, the storm grew deeper, and every hour, Caitlin Clark's name dominated the conversation. And at the center of the crossfire? Lexi Brown and Cheryl Swoops, two women whose comments, attitudes, and escalating hostility had triggered a firestorm the league could no longer contain. But the real explosion came when a private recording leaked. A heated conversation between executives, never meant for public ears, suddenly appeared online. And in that recording, one voice said the words that ripped the entire crisis open. "We're protecting people who keep hurting the league. If this continues, Clark leaves, sponsors pull out, and we collapse. We can't afford that. No more shielding anyone." In seconds, the clip went viral. The backlash didn't just return, it doubled. Inside the locker rooms, players whispered, horrified. Team staff moved like ghosts, avoiding eye contact. And in practice facilities across the league, the atmosphere shifted into pure survival mode. No one knew where the axe would fall next, but everyone knew it was coming. Lexi Brown could feel it tightening around her throat. Teammates avoided talking to her. Some wouldn't even look at her. The coaching staff grew cold, distant. Even the PR team refused to update her directly. They only sent emails. And every time she stepped into the gym, she felt the weight of invisible blame pressing down like a spotlight she couldn't escape. Cheryl Swoops was no better off. Her inbox filled with messages from producers pulling back interview offers. Speaking engagements canceled. Friends stopped responding. And the league, an organization she once believed would always back her, was suddenly silent. No support. No reassurance. Just distance. Then the second twist hit. The WNBA Players Association released a statement clearly distancing themselves from Lexi and Swoops. It was filled with careful language, but the message was unmistakable. These remarks do not represent the union or the overwhelming majority of players. Behind the scenes, players were furious. Some argued the situation had gone too far. Others believed it hadn't gone far enough. Rivalries erupted. Group chats turned toxic. Star players unfollowed each other. And in a stunning move, a top veteran, one who had never publicly taken sides, posted a cryptic message. "Be careful who you defend. The receipts are coming." That post detonated the league. Everyone scrambled to guess who she meant. Fans speculated. Reporters hunted. Players panicked. Because everyone in the WNBA had receipts. DMs, voice notes, training camp recordings, practice audio, group chat screenshots. And everyone knew it. The threat of leaks loomed over the league like a guillotine ready to fall. But nothing shook the WNBA more than when a trusted insider exposed what had been brewing for weeks. A potential mass sponsor exit. 3 major brands, all quietly considering pulling out if the league didn't take strong disciplinary action. That phrase, strong disciplinary action, was all anyone needed to hear. The WNBA wasn't just dealing with drama anymore. It was facing financial catastrophe. And as the league scrambled to avoid collapse, a secret emergency meeting was called late at night. No cameras, no press, no leaks allowed. Only the highest-level decision-makers invited. What they decided in that room would change everything. But before dawn broke, someone inside that meeting sent a single message to a reporter. They're not ready for what's coming. And with that warning hanging in the air like smoke after an explosion, the entire WNBA braced for impact. Because the next announcement would shatter the league to its core. The moment the WNBA announced immediate disciplinary action, the entire sports world convulsed. Social media didn't just react, it detonated. Fans flooded timelines with disbelief, fury, chaos, and mocking celebration as the news spread that 2 of the league's most outspoken Caitlin Clark critics were facing the consequences nobody believed would ever come. And at the center of the explosion sat the one name the league could not escape: Caitlin Clark. Overnight, hashtags surged past 100 million views. Clips from interviews resurfaced. Old posts were dragged out of the grave. Every comment that aged badly was suddenly viral again. Even people who had never watched a single WNBA game were suddenly experts on the scandal. The narrative crystallized into a single, brutal sentence. They ruined their own careers trying to tear Caitlin Clark down. League executives watched in horror as fans demanded transparency, receipts, explanations, and accountability from every direction. Political commentators jumped in. Sports analysts took sides. Even major sponsors, sensing reputational danger, scrambled to distance themselves from anything controversial. And the WNBA, already battling accusations of bias, was now being dissected by millions with unforgiving precision. Inside locker rooms across the country, players whispered like the walls could listen. No one knew who would be the next target or which comments from the past would suddenly resurface. Veterans panicked. Rookies froze. Coaches ordered media silence. PR teams handed out pre-written answers. Every hallway conversation felt like a career waiting to implode. Clark herself tried to stay focused inside the Indiana Fever facility, but even she couldn't ignore the tidal wave crashing around her. Reporters camped outside practices. Drones hovered above the parking lot. Every move she made became a headline. And while she remained calm in public, privately she was shaken. She never asked for this. She never wanted anyone fired. But the world decided this story belonged to her, whether she liked it or not. Meanwhile, the league office descended into panic. Staff members worked through the night, fueled by cold coffee and raw nerves, as they battled an avalanche of emails from fans, sponsors, players' agents, TV partners, legal teams, and board members. The phrase, "We've lost control of the narrative," echoed through the halls so many times that it became a soundtrack. But the emotional meltdown outside the office was 10 times louder. Fan bases turned on each other in ways the WNBA had never seen. Arguments ignited under every tweet. Comment sections turned into battlegrounds. Some defended Lexi and Swoops passionately. Others celebrated their downfall with unhinged enthusiasm. The tension became so toxic that even neutral voices were scared to speak publicly, worried that taking the wrong tone could be career suicide. On ESPN, Stephen A. Smith unleashed a segment so fiery it instantly trended as the top sports clip in America. Other media giants followed, each adding fuel to a fire that was already consuming the league's reputation. And through all of it, a chilling truth hung in the air. This wasn't just controversy anymore. This was a power shift. For the first time, the WNBA realized that the public, not the league, had seized control of the narrative. And that public was demanding blood. Sponsors made quiet demands behind closed doors. "If you don't handle this," one executive warned, "we will." The implication was unmistakable: protect the league's future or watch it collapse. The emotional toll on the players was catastrophic. Some cried in bathrooms between practice drills. Others broke down to staff members, terrified that something they said in the past would be twisted next. A few lashed out at teammates, adding fuel to locker room fractures already widening by the hour. No one trusted anyone. Team chemistry disintegrated. Coaches privately admitted this was the worst morale crisis in league history. Even neutral figures like Paige Buchers, watching from college basketball's spotlight, were dragged into the discourse by fans arguing over who truly deserved attention. Everyone became part of the storm, even those who wanted no part of it. By the time the next morning arrived, the public narrative had spiraled so far out of control that the league prepared a second emergency statement, something bolder, harsher, and far more controversial than anyone expected. Executives rehearsed every line, terrified of making the crisis even worse. But just as they prepared to release it, something happened. A leak. Not a rumor. Not a clip. Not a screenshot. A document. One that would flip the entire scandal upside down, make the firings look like the least explosive part of the story, and force the WNBA to confront a truth they had desperately hoped would never emerge. Because this document didn't just explain what happened. It exposed why it happened. And once the world saw it, nothing would ever be the same again. This is the moment where everything shifts, where you step into the heartbeat of this unfolding chaos and decide which side of WNBA history you're going to stand on. Because the story isn't ending. It's only getting louder, messier, wilder, and more unpredictable with every single hour. And right now, as the league scrambles, the players brace themselves, and the fan base divides like never before, your voice carries more weight than ever. The WNBA is watching. The media is watching. Every player wrapped up in this storm is watching. And the next move, yes, the very next move, belongs entirely to you. You've seen the pressure. You've felt the tension. You've watched the fallout shake an entire league to its core. But this is where the real impact happens. This is where the energy, the outrage, the support, the questions, the demands, all collide into one powerful surge that determines what comes next. So hit that like button with the force of every emotion this scandal stirred in you. Drop a comment so bold it can't be ignored. Let your voice shake the algorithm and push this story into every corner of the sports world. If you're riding with the truth, say it. If you're standing with the players who've been caught in the crossfire, say it. If you believe accountability matters more than silence, let it echo across the comment section. And if you're ready for every twist that's about to erupt next, then you already know. Make sure you're subscribed, locked in, and ready to catch the next chapter the second it drops. Because what's coming next is bigger, darker, and even more shocking than what's already exploded. This isn't just a story anymore. It's a movement, and it's time for you to choose your role in it. The drama isn't over.